Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is just gone 21 after 9 o'clock. Welcome back to the second hour of news and views on Salam Media. Standing by to talk to us is Mohammed Desai, Executive Director for Africa for Palestine. And we are looking at the story of Al Jazeera Media Network submitting a formal request to the ICC to investigate and prosecute those responsible for killing veteran Palestinian American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. Salaam alaikum to you, Mohammed. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam. Jazakallah so much for having me and for covering this issue.
Thank you indeed. Long time no speak. Nice to be chatting again. Look, Mohammed, the reality of the situation is that for a long while, I think you are aware of the fact that we at Salam Media raise the issue of Palestine on a regular basis. And every time we speak to a journalist or an activist from Palestine, the issue around the ICC comes up. They all say that these issues need to be taken up at the ICC. But till now, we haven't heard of any of those cases being heard in the ICC. And I'm wondering, do we in fact hope for the ICC to take this matter possibly seriously?
I think that there's two parts to what you are raising. And let me start off with the second. There was a major breakthrough last year in which the ICC's prosecutor came out to declare that indeed the ICC does have jurisdiction over crimes committed in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Now, although this was hailed as a milestone in terms of international law, the issue is that politics is still at play, it would seem, and the fact that the cases have not been formally taken forward within the ICC after this pronouncement by the prosecutor is problematic. However, I think something that you raised earlier about Salam Media always raising the issue of Palestine ties in well with what this current lodging of a complaint by Al Jazeera is all about. And that is that the Palestinians and the Palestinian struggle is not being forgotten. The struggle for Palestinian liberation is being waged on a daily basis in different avenues. And in this case, although the family of Shireen Abu Akleh had lodged a complaint with the ICC a few months ago, this is now a second complaint by Al Jazeera. And Al Jazeera has hired, we must say, some hotshot lawyers and a proper legal team. And they are making the case that not only was Shireen Abu Akleh murdered by an Israeli sniper, but that indeed Israel has a policy against journalists in general. And they cite, for example, the bombing of the Associated Press and Al Jazeera building last year in the Gaza Strip, which many of us may recall. So I think that on one hand, whilst the ICC is dragging its feet on the issue of Palestine, I do think that there is an unstoppable wave of solidarity and support with the Palestinian people that will make it inevitable.
The Israeli authorities are suggesting that Shireen Abu Akleh was actually killed in a crossfire, and this wasn't a targeted killing on her, on her. Al Jazeera has suggested that they do have evidence contrary to what the Israelis are saying.
I think that the Israelis are being caught out for their lies. I think that Al-Haq, for example, one of the human rights organizations that have done a investigation and has produced both video as well as photographic evidence, and which has been included in the recent evidence that has been submitted by Al Jazeera, completely dismisses any sort of validity to the Israeli argument. The fact is that Shireen Abu Akleh, according to the majority of accounts, and virtually all accounts, in fact, other than that of the Israeli government, a government that is quite charitable when it comes to the truth, all accounts are pointing to the fact that not only was she deliberately murdered, but that the journalists on that day were intentionally targeted. I think that in addition, the FBI in the United States has also now indicated that they will be simultaneously investigating this matter because of the fact that Shireen was also an American citizen. And I think that the fact that the FBI is also taking up this issue points to the fact that they too disagree with the Israeli Defense Forces position.
Well, that's very comforting indeed. We do hope something concrete will come out from their investigations, and that you don't have a situation where it is hushed up by the powers that be from the Israeli or perhaps Jewish lobbyists in the States. When we look at the issue around the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh, there is a wider pattern here as far as the Israelis are concerned, isn't it? I mean, they go out, they target, they have deliberate targets, and they go out and get you if they believe that you are maligning their reputation, or, you know, whatever it is that you're doing and you're anti-Israeli, they will go out and try and muffle your voice, will they not?
Indeed, I mean, for a long time they held a monopoly over the narrative coming out of Palestine. They dictated what the international media and indeed what the international community will interpret as to what is happening on the ground. But that is slowly changing. It's changing with, for example, the media like Al Jazeera, like Salam Media, for example, having correspondence and having interviews with people on the ground in Palestine. But also, I think one of the major shifts that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years has been it can be attributed to the contribution of social media. Pictures and videos and information coming instantaneously out of Palestine into the international community has really shifted the international community's position. And so you are correct that Israel tries to control the narrative by indeed just eliminating Palestinians or Palestinian journalists or indeed international media from distributing this information, but it is failing because of the various methods being used by different forms of media, journalists, and a very active civil society.
So, Mohammed, let's assume that this case, that Al Jazeera is successful in getting the ICC to hear the case. What sort of possible outcomes can we hope for from a positive point of view, and for justice for the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh? And it won't only be justice for Shireen's family, it will be justice for other Palestinians that have been murdered. It will be justice for other journalists, local and foreign, that have been murdered because the Israelis didn't like what they were saying, or they were exposing the Israeli atrocities.
No, spot on. I mean, firstly, a judgment from the ICC will mean justice for the family of Shireen Abu Akleh, because they will know who was the trigger person, who was the person that fired that bullet into the ear of Shireen Abu Akleh. But secondly, it will also hold accountable those in command within the Israeli Defense Force and, in fact, within the political establishment. The ICC has jurisdiction to also investigate and hold accountable political figures that knew of this incident both before and after. And then I think thirdly, what it does is that, as you correctly pointed out, it does start changing the ways in which Israel will have to treat journalists and will have to treat media. They are increasingly under the spotlight, and this will be yet another spotlight on the Israelis to expose their crimes and to hold them accountable. And really, at the end of the day, it's this combination of holding Israel accountable, both as civil society, as governments of the world, and within judicial bodies such as the ICC, that will ultimately make Israel, that will force Israel to give up its policies of occupation and oppression.
That being said, then, Mohammed, what is the hope of organizations like yourself, Africa for Palestine, and there's so many other such pro Palestine, free Palestine organizations all around the world, that very many activists wanting the emancipation of the Palestinian people. What can we hope for? We are in the 21st century. We are supposed to be an enlightened human race, and yet we are, involved in occupying other people. Involved in ethnic cleansing, and all of these, human atrocities. How can we hope for a better outcome, and when? And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but when can we possibly see some light at the end of the tunnel for the Palestinian people?
I think I'm very hopeful. I think in the last 10 or 15 years that I've been doing this, or that I've been involved in this kind of work, you really do see a shift within. You see a shift where the issue of Palestine has moved from the streets and into the corridors of power. You see the voices on the streets have been translated into action by states. And so even, for example, on this issue of Shireen Abu Akleh, the fact that we had protests and pickets and various actions in South Africa was translated into thereafter our own government taking a position at various United Nations bodies, and our Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Naledi Pandor, coming out very clearly condemning the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh in various platforms that she participated in. This then translates into better support for the Palestinians within bodies such as the International Criminal Court or various other UN structures. And so we do have a very good thread that is tying up civil society, our government, and now, which is the focus of Africa for Palestine, that is our international bodies such as the ICC, the ICJ, and UN structures. We do hope, inshallah, that the support from South Africa, for example, coming from our streets, will find expression in the very near future as sanctions within UN agencies.
My final question then to you, or comment, which I would like you to respond to. Mohammed, haven't you noticed, as hopeful as you are and as hopeful as we all are, that efforts by the Israeli occupiers, they seem to have stepped up their efforts as well against the Palestinian people. They have made life as difficult as they possibly can for the Palestinian people. We've seen what's happened over the past 10 days. So very many young people have been murdered. They weren't even provoked. The occupiers weren't even provoked, and lives have been taken. So they seem to be almost desperate and doing everything they possibly can to try and wipe out as many Palestinian people as they can, and to try and, if they possibly could, obliterate the history of the Palestinian people from that part of the world.
I think that the reality on the ground is definitely a very tragic one. In the last 5 years, for example, each and every year, over 200 Palestinians have been killed. More than 50 of them, on the average, are children under the age of 16. This is each and every year for the last 5 years. And so you are correct that the reality on the ground is a bloody reality, it's a tragic reality, it's a traumatic reality. But as a Palestinian poet, Mahmoud Darwish says, he and his people are prisoners of hope, that they continue to live in hope. But not only do they live in hope, I think what's more inspiring and motivating is the fact that even though a mother's child may be killed, the next day she still insists on standing in the streets of Jenin or Ramallah or Gaza or the Gaza Strip, insisting to stand on her feet rather than to die on her knees. And I think that this kind of resilience of the Palestinian mother, of the Palestinian people generally, is really an inspiration for many of us. And I think that partially, just to a small degree, that they stand on the streets of Palestine in defiance of this brutal Israeli occupation because they know that they have friends and supporters across the globe, including in South Africa.
And we will never allow their stories to die. We will always keep alive the story of the Palestinian struggle and other marginalized communities all around the world. Mohammed Desai, Africa for Palestine. Keep up the great work. Until the next time, as always, Salaam alaikum to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The time is exactly 9:36. Standing by to talk to us is Darby Ritt. He's an economist, and we're going to be talking about the GDP figures for the third quarter. We're also going to be looking at a report suggesting that we in South Africa we're probably on the brink of what collapse. I don't know. Darby Ritt is standing by to talk to us about those two very serious issues.